He did what? Invited her for dinner. Now I'm the bad guy. The floor dropped out from under me last week, and honestly, I'm still reeling. It started with a dinner invitation, innocent enough, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. I'm divorcing my husband. He invited his ex for dinner, and the ensuing humiliation was the final straw. Now everyone's on his side, saying I'm blowing things out of proportion, ruining a family over jokes. We have a 4-year-old boy. And I'm genuinely starting to question if I'm the one who's crazy here. Let's rewind a bit. Tom and I met in graduate school. He was an undergraduate at the time, and I was completing my master's. After getting married, I quit my job, but when our baby was 6 months old, I had to go back to work. Tom's salary simply wasn't enough. This sparked countless arguments because, according to Tom, it was disrespectful to him, a sign of my lack of faith in his ability to provide. I spent weeks trying to convince him it had nothing to do with his skill, and he finally relented after realizing he could take time off work to spend with our son. The downside, I ended up doing all the housework on top of my job. Tom justified it by saying his job as a personal trainer was far more physically demanding than my desk job, so I should shoulder the majority of the housework despite working longer hours. According to him, home chores shouldn't be too taxing because I don't perform much physical activity at work. We agreed he'd help when I first started working, but every time I came home, the job was only partially done. He was always too tired. We argued constantly until I finally gave up to avoid the endless conflict and took care of everything myself. I even started smoking from the stress, which Tom mocked, claiming I was just trying to flaunt my superior intelligence. He also consistently criticized my cooking, conveniently ignoring the fact that he never helped with meal prep, and I was juggling everything: work, childcare, housework. For years, I lived like this, staying solely for our son, knowing a separation would impact his life. Finally, I broke and hired a maid, paying for it myself. Tom still ridiculed me, saying it was a reflection of my poor housekeeping abilities and constantly comparing me to his mother, who apparently juggled work and home effortlessly. When I pointed out that those women likely had supportive partners, he'd just laugh it off, telling me to calm down. It's just a joke, but those jokes felt like knives twisting in my gut. Look, we weren't always miserable. There were good times, but I'd been contemplating divorce for a while. And then Tom brought Lucy, his ex-girlfriend, home for dinner last week, and everything imploded. Lucy was his high school sweetheart. They dated for 6 years before splitting because they went to different universities. Tom's friends brought her up constantly, even after our marriage, teasing him about her. They were a thing, I knew it. But nothing could have prepared me for the overly pleasant, downright flirtatious behavior that night. He was blatantly trying to impress her, and it was working. That was bad enough. Then the jokes started. He started joking about what a messy housewife I was and how lucky I was to have my career as a justification for it. Otherwise, what was I good for? Because Lucy, a stay-at-home mom to 2 girls, was so much better at everything than I was. He even joked that Lucy was actually at the grocery store, buying ingredients for a French dish she intended to prepare for her husband, something I'd never do. It was like they were both mocking me. He also brought up my smoking, claiming I was just trying to flaunt how stressed I was. Lucy was flawless at everything, apparently. I was fighting back tears the whole time, but I plastered on a smile because I refused to give her the satisfaction. After serving them ice cream for dessert, I excused myself. It was beyond humiliating. That night, while Tom slept, a rare occurrence since I usually do the dishes and get to bed after him, I packed some clothes and essentials for our son and me, booked a ride, and went to my parents' place the second he started snoring. It was almost midnight when I arrived. As soon as my mom opened the door, I burst into tears, trying to explain through sobs. My son, understandably confused and cranky, started crying too. I hadn't wanted to leave him, unsure if Tom could adequately care for him while I was gone. My parents, without hesitation, took us in. Once they got my son to bed, I finally managed to tell them everything. The next morning, Tom called me in a panic, wanting to know where I was, but the worrying evaporated the second I told him I was leaving and filing for divorce. He laughed. He told me to come home and stop causing drama. That's when I lost it, unleashing years of pent-up anger, calling him a misogynist, selfish, and a man-child. He finally seemed to realize I was serious when I said I'd rather be single forever than return to him. Then he started arguing, accusing me of exaggerating, making a big deal out of nothing. Instead of apologizing, he insisted his jokes were just an attempt to lighten the mood and that I needed to stop taking things personally. But his jokes weren't funny, they were cruel, especially considering how hard I was already trying. Every day, he pushed my boundaries. When he realized this was more than a joke, he started playing the victim, claiming I'd been plotting my departure for a while and that this was the final straw. Now, all of our friends are texting me, telling me to prioritize our family over my hurt feelings, not to let stupid jokes ruin our marriage. Everyone keeps saying I shouldn't break up a family over jokes, even after I tried explaining the years of mistreatment they don't see. Some seemed placated when I posted a detailed explanation of everything I had discussed. All I had previously bottled up inside was now being let out to be seen. Tom also saw it and commented that I should have notified him if these were my issues. I've been telling him these things for years, it's been like talking to a wall. But after that post, he started begging for one last chance, promising to change and be better. He's even enlisted some of our friends to pressure me, telling me he's guaranteed to improve and be a fantastic husband. It's infuriating that he's using this manipulative, immature strategy, relying on peer pressure to try to talk me out of a divorce. I've given him countless opportunities to improve over the past few years, and he's never done it. I don't believe he's capable of change anymore. Even if I stayed now, I'm sure he'd make a genuine effort for a few months, tops, then revert to his old ways. I'm tired of being a single mother with a spouse. I'm not getting any younger. And he's hardly an ideal role model for our son. More than anything, I don't want my son to grow up in a home where Tom's behavior is normalized. I stayed with him for my son for so long, and now I'm leaving him for the same reason. I filed for divorce 2 days ago, and he was served today. He's furious, primarily because he never wanted a divorce in the first place. Now he wants to keep the house we lived in and filed for full custody of our son, or, if we sell it, divide the proceeds 60/40ths, with me getting the larger share since both of our parents gave us the house as a wedding gift and because of the labor and effort I've put in over the past few years working full-time. Raising our son, and handling all the housework without his help, I feel that I should be given the greater percentage. I think the petition is reasonable because I'm not even asking for alimony. Tom claims I'm being unfair and that I shouldn't have asked for full custody, which is unreasonable, but I don't believe he's capable of being a primary caregiver. He can still visit and see his son whenever he wants. I haven't attempted to take away his visitation rights. He simply hasn't been consistently present on a full-time basis. After he was served, he called me, screaming that I was crazy and overreacting. He claimed he already disagreed with the divorce, so there was a valid reason for him to think I was irrational since I was requesting full custody as well. Then, shockingly, he broke down in tears on the other end of the line when I told him I'd thought about this a lot and it hadn't been easy for me. Tom is not an emotional person, so his breakdown was a significant event. He sobbed and said he'd taken everything for granted because he never thought he could bear to lose me. He begged me for one last chance to prove he could be a wonderful husband and father. I told him my decision was final and that his realization was a bit too late. Though it was incredibly difficult to say those words, I couldn't just go back to the life we had. It felt strange and unsettling to stay on the phone and try to comfort him for the next several minutes. Eventually, he stopped crying and declared that if our son suffered because of this, he'd never be able to forgive either himself or me. I reassured him that we might renegotiate the terms of his custody in a few years when he's a little older, so this was only a temporary arrangement. I informed him that this would be difficult for both of us, but we needed to strive to be strong for our son's sake and make the most of our circumstances. He hung up shortly after that. For the next few hours, I didn't hear from anyone. Then, suddenly, all of our friends were contacting me again, telling me that what I'm doing is wrong and that I should reconsider before making drastic decisions. They're arguing that instead of being so inflexible, I should pause and reflect on my choice since Tom is now regretting what happened. It was just a handful at first, but now it's almost everyone we know. And I'm genuinely starting to question my judgment. Am I the bad guy here? I honestly don't know anymore. After all of this, am I the jerk for requesting a divorce and full custody of our son? Update. Hello. Following a very hectic week, I'm back with an update. My lawyer and I have been getting ready for the divorce settlement and custody. Tom and I will first meet with the mediator appointed by the court. The actual divorce process doesn't worry me too much, but I'm quite anxious about the custody. Everyone keeps saying that my desire for full custody is abusive, but they don't see the big picture. Our son spends more time with me and always, so I know he favors me. We all know that's not how kids operate. Tom has always attempted to build a relationship with our son just on his terms. Observing Tom's abrupt change into a worried father has been one of the most annoying aspects of the effects of the previous events. He has been making false claims on social media about how much he misses his son and how unfair it is that he is unable to see him. He hasn't attempted, but he is welcome to come at any time. These posts have been reposted by a number of mutual acquaintances who have added their own remarks about what a loving parent he is. The truth is very different. Even our son's daily schedule, preferred meals. He called us only recently to inquire if our young child still enjoys dinosaur-shaped nuggets, due to his current space-themed food obsession. Our son hasn't had those in more than a year. These minor details cast doubt on his capacity to serve as a main caregiver, given that I have been actively involved in our son's life while Tom has only occasionally done so. My lawyer believes we have a solid argument. Everything from the doctor's visits I've taken our son, the parent-teacher conferences Tom has missed, and the daily schedule I've kept up while working a full-time job are all being documented. The financial side of things is a complete disaster. Some preliminary documents were sent over by Tom's lawyer, who is disputing my request for the house. They contend that it ought to be divided equally because it was a wedding present from both sets of parents. Conveniently, they failed to mention that I have been responsible for all of the upkeep and upgrades throughout the years. The incessant barrage of messages from people who hardly understand our predicament is what's truly getting to me. Even some of Tom's gym patrons have contacted me to express their sadness and to tell me what a wonderful man he has always been. They seem to be living in a different universe where having a charming personality at work inevitably translates into being a good spouse. My mother-in-law's response has been the most unexpected development. She genuinely phoned me to let me know that she understood my decision, in contrast to the majority of our friends who have sided with Tom. She disclosed that during the early years of their marriage, she and Tom's father experienced similar problems, but she decided to stay and try to resolve them. I could tell how that worked out for her just by the resignation in her voice as she stated those words. All of this has been made possible by the tremendous support of my own parents. When I need to meet with lawyers or take care of paperwork, my mom has been watching our son while my dad helps me manage my financial documents. I've come to appreciate how alone and unsupported I felt in my marriage thanks to their assistance. To be honest, there have been occasions when the tension has been too much to bear. For the first time since I moved, I found myself reaching for a cigarette last night, but I restrained myself. I came to the realization that my smoking was not a necessity, but rather a result of my marital issues. You get clarity in these moments. Late at night, Tom has begun texting me lengthy textbooks that range from tearful pleas to irate accusations. He mentioned in his most recent message that he has been learning how to properly do washing and cooking by viewing tutorials. If it weren't so depressing, at the age of 28, he is only now choosing to develop these fundamental life skills. Screenshots of Tom's private social media posts, in which he offers his perspective. He presents himself as a loving spouse who was taken by surprise by a wife who had never expressed her feelings. People are accusing me of being cold-hearted and speculating that I may be experiencing a midlife crisis. That one made me laugh. It seems like I'm already experiencing a midlife crisis at the age of 35. My lawyer told me not to react to any of these provocations. She claims that when he engages in this type of deceptive behavior in public, it actually helps our cause. It's difficult to avoid feeling under attack from all sides. Observing how much more at ease our son has been since we relocated to my parents' place is the one thing that keeps me grounded. He appears to be happier overall and is eating and sleeping naturally. He still inquires about his father, but he isn't as worried about it as he was when we all shared a home and things were tense. Next week is the date of my first mediation session. Even though my lawyer has prepared me for this, I'm still anxious. I'm aware that it will be a challenging process. Stated that they intend to vigorously oppose the full custody. Every day that goes by makes me feel more certain about my choice. Even with all the pressure and second-guessing from others, I've been reminded of what a supportive home is like by living with my parents. For the first time in years, I'm getting enough sleep, and I'm beginning to recall my former self. Off before I got so caught up in trying to make an impossible scenario work. As we begin the legal proceedings, the upcoming weeks will be critical. After the mediation session, I'll provide another update, but for now, I just wanted to express my gratitude to everyone who helped me with my first post. When I was most doubting myself, your remarks kept me going. Update to Tom Peterson: if my parents' house today. Since my last update, which was a week and a half ago, I must admit that I was terrified of this meeting. This was most likely our final and formal meeting before the actual legal process starts, as we have our mediation session in a few days. Given all of his recent passionate text messages, I anticipated this visit to be contentious, but today's events fundamentally altered my viewpoint on a number of issues. Tom was standing there when I answered the door, looking more put together than I had seen him in a long time. In addition to bringing a small gift bag for our son, he was dressed appropriately in a button-down shirt rather than his typical gym clothing. His manner truly caught my attention. None of the defensiveness or animosity I had been bracing for. Even when we were married, he seldom ever engaged in small chat with my parents. He talked to my dad about some local sports and inquired about my mom's garden. Yes, it was embarrassing, yet oddly, this unexpectedly normal conversation lasted for approximately 15 minutes, lights before he asked to come in. It took me a bit to answer because the way he spoke was already so different from how he usually behaved. When we entered the living room, our son was playing. His whole face brightened when he spotted his daddy. He yelled, dropping his toys and sprinting directly into Tom's embrace. I saw their contact from the door. When I brought up our son's new space passion in the custody document, one with the demonstrating that he had genuinely listened, Tom led our kid to take the lead in assembling it. Something he had never done before, and they sat on the floor together. Typically, he attempted to regulate the activities and became irate when our son did not precisely follow his instructions. Hearing Tom inquire about our son's day, his daycare pal, and his favorite aspects of living at Grandma and Grandpa's place truly got to me. He truly listened to our son's meandering responses about the treehouse in the backyard and the neighbors. I had never witnessed him interact with our son in this way in all the years we had been married. At one occurrence, our son began to tell Tom about how I prepared rocket-shaped sandwiches. Previously, Tom would have made a snarky remark about my culinary abilities, but now he wanted our kid to show him how. Our son took his father's instruction on how to properly assemble a rocket sandwich extremely seriously, and they spent the next 20 minutes in the kitchen. Our son's question about when he may see his father again was the true turning point. I was struck by the hopeful expression on both of their faces. Tom didn't try to control the situation or make demands right away. He simply stared at me while he awaited my answer. When it was time for Tom to leave after they had finished playing, our son gave him a big embrace and invited him to return the next day. Tom gave me a curious look, and before I had given it much thought, I found myself nodding. We had a little conversation at the door. He admitted that he had been a terrible father thus far without displaying his customary defensiveness. He acknowledged that he realized how much he had missed by not being more involved. Even though he couldn't be a better husband, he assured me he was willing to learn everything he could to become a better father. He said he had been attending parenting classes 3 times a week and had hired a nanny to teach him how to properly care for children, not to replace me. But to show me that he was serious about this, he displayed the diplomas on his phone. He didn't make any lofty claims about changing or try to get me to return. He simply asked me to reevaluate the complete custody agreement instead. He proposed that we arranged a timetable that would allow him to demonstrate his ability to be a responsible parent without interfering with our son's daily routine. I found my lawyer after he departed. I informed her that I would be willing to talk about a joint custody agreement and that I no longer wanted to pursue full custody. She brought up all of the records we had collected demonstrating Tom's prior lack of involvement, but I told her that even if he hadn't been a good husband, I needed to give him an opportunity to improve what is a father. Our son's expression of unadulterated happiness today made me realize why it is that even though it's the proper thing to terminate my marriage, I don't have the authority to break off my son's relationship with his father, especially now that Tom is finally demonstrating that he wants to be the father our son deserves. Update 3. Surprisingly, the divorce talks are proceeding considerably more amicably than I had anticipated. Tom and his attorney have been extremely helpful, which I believe is his way of expressing regret for his previous actions. Our son's custody arrangements are still being worked out verbally and informally, but we're thinking that he should spend half of the month at his dad's house and the other. Actually, we're doing just that at the moment. In a few days, my son will move in with his father. This arrangement first made me nervous. To his great relief, he has begged his mother for assistance. She has been more supportive than some of my closest friends, even when our marriage. She still gives me a call every day to see how I'm doing and sends me photos of the bedroom. She's helping Tom Spanish for our boy. Additionally, the house matter has been settled more readily than I had thought. In recognition of the extra effort I had put in over the years, whereas Tom agreed to sell it and divide the revenues 55% turn up to 45% in my favor. This solution was actually proposed by his attorney, demonstrating their sincere desire to be fair. In addition, Tom has taken a co-parenting course, which was suggested by the mediator, but not necessary. Through our new co-parenting app, which allows us to manage appointments, calendar, and our son's activities without having to speak to each other directly, he has been updating me on his progress. The way Tom manages our son's space period has been the most unexpected development. His apartment spare room has been converted into a miniature planetarium, complete with ceiling-mounted glow-in-the-dark stars. In order to maintain continuity between houses, he asked me for our son's nighttime ritual. Since neither of us believes that a 2-week period without seeing either parent is healthy for our son, I continue to see him every few days while Tom is away. We've arranged for Wednesday supper with whoever doesn't have him that week and alternating weekends. Instead of rehashing our marital problems, the mediation sessions have been fruitful. Regarding managing school healthcare decisions and holidays, Tom has been actively engaging, taking notes and posing pertinent questions. No more conflict on social media or late-night texts. We set clear contact boundaries. Our lawyers or the co-parenting app handle everything. In the last update, Tom willingly removed all of his earlier posts regarding our predicament and said that we are resolving the matter in private for the sake of our son. Through all of this, his mother has been an unanticipated bless. In addition to teaching Tom how to be a parent, she also acts as a mediator between us when tensions rise. She set up a meeting with both sets of grandparents last week so we could have a reasonable conversation about our disagreements over preschool alternatives. In the end, we came up with a solution that satisfied everyone. Our son appears to be adjusting to the new situation rather nicely, although we're attempting to keep things somewhat consistent by bringing his favorite stuffed animals with him when he moves between homes. He is thrilled to have 2 rooms and 2 sets of toys. Without showing any signs of concern, he stopped asking when we were returning home and instead talked about mommy's and daddy's houses. Our lawyers are taking care of the financial matters, with explicit instructions on how much each of us will pay and how the funds may be utilized. We are creating a joint account especially play for our son's school. Tom proposed this on his own because he wanted to make sure that our financial obligations as co-parents were transparent. We have a thorough parenting plan that addresses everything from medical choices, education, even instructions on how to manage future relationships have been included, such as meeting any possible new partners before presenting them to our son. I am aware that there are still obstacles in our way. This is only the start of our co-parenting adventure, and there will surely be setbacks. However, for the first time since it all started, I have genuine hope that we will be able to prioritize our son's needs and Cooper Bright as parents even if we are unable to cooperate as spouse. The most important thing is that my son is happier than I have seen him in months. Both Tom and I now realize the previous hurts is less essential than becoming good co-parents. I'm glad we were able to come to an agreement that prioritizes our son's welfare while still enabling us to have deep connections with him. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during this trip. When I was having self-doubts that would benefit my son and myself. This community has been an amazing source of insight and strength. So, after hearing everything, do you think I was right to pursue the divorce? Did I handle the situation with Tom as well as I could have? I'm genuinely curious to hear your opinions. It's easy to judge from the outside, but I'd really value honest feedback on whether you think I overreacted initially, if I should have given Tom more chances, or if ultimately, making this decision and settling on a custody agreement that has proven to prioritize everyone involved was the best thing for me and my son.